Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to break down exactly why you freeze up, step back, and immediately offer to be the one holding the phone when it's time for a group picture. We're diving deep into the exact physical, psychological, and emotional reasons you naturally try to hide the second someone points a camera at you. Because, as it turns out, this reaction, it isn't just vanity or shyness. There is some absolutely fascinating science behind it.
You know the drill, right? We've all been there. You look in the mirror in the morning and you think, okay, I look fine. Actually, maybe even good. Your hair's finally cooperating, your skin looks clear, and you're ready to tackle the day. But then, maybe 10 minutes later, someone snaps a photo of you. You look down at the screen and just think, wait, who on earth is that? That person looks completely unfamiliar. The jawline is all wrong, your nose suddenly looks bigger, your smile is doing this weird thing, and you genuinely start to wonder which version of you is actually real, the one in the morning mirror or the one in the photo.
Section 1. The mirror versus the lens. To really start unpacking this mystery, we've got to look at the literal physics of the camera and why it immediately triggers your brain to reject what it sees. Think about the difference between a reflection and a photograph. You look at your own reflection thousands of times, right? In bathroom mirrors, car windows, even just glancing at your dark phone screen. That reflection is comforting because it's the version of your face you know best. But a photograph, it completely flips that image. It shows you how the rest of the world actually sees you. And because that unflipped version is so much less familiar, your brain immediately goes on high alert and says, whoa, something is off. That's not quite me. There's actually a name for this in psychology. It's called the mirror exposure effect. The basic idea here is that your brain simply likes what it sees the most. A study that came out around 2023 actually tested this by showing people both versions of themselves, the familiar mirror image and the true photo image. They asked the participants which one looked more attractive, and guess what? Almost everyone picked the mirror. It totally proves your brain simply prefers the familiar version. So no, you aren't imagining it. The photo genuinely looks different to you than it does to everyone else. And hey, it's not just your brain playing tricks on you. The camera itself is actively working against you. A study published in JAMA, which is one of the biggest medical journals out there, found that selfies taken at close range literally bend reality. They make your nose appear about 30% larger than it actually is. 30%, that's huge. The lens is literally distorting your face. So when you look at a close-up picture and think, man, that doesn't look like me, you are entirely correct. It doesn't. But not because of how you actually look, but because the physics of the camera is actively bending reality. Moving on to Section 2, the psychological expectation gap. So the physical distortion from the lens, that's really just scratching the surface. The real heaviness, the true anxiety, sets in when you open your phone and see a tagged photo from last weekend. You didn't choose the angle, and you certainly never agreed to share it with the world. Your very first instinct is to untag, delete, and pretend it never happened. Psychologists call this self-discrepancy theory. Basically, you carry around two versions of yourself in your head, who you actually are and the ideal version of who you want to be. Most of the time, you manage to keep these two pretty close together. But a photograph forces that ideal self and the real self side by side, and your brain desperately tries to protect the gap between them. Now, here is the absolute kicker. This isn't just some mild annoyance. When that gap gets too wide, studies show that people experience what registers in the brain as actual, real emotional pain. Your brain is trying to measure a distance it simply doesn't know how to close. People with a larger gap between their real and ideal selves are far more likely to avoid photos entirely or edit them beyond recognition, entirely driven by the immediate instinct to just delete the evidence of that pain. Which brings us to Section 3, the spotlight and the stage. Taking photos out in public introduces a whole new layer of social anxiety. Why? Because it completely takes away your control over how you are perceived, and the environment just amplifies this. A researcher at Cornell named Thomas Gilovich proved we run this thing called a spotlight effect in our heads. We consistently overestimate how much other people notice us by roughly 2 times. 2 times. You think everyone sees that awkward angle, that weird smile, or that tiny flaw in your posture. The truth? They don't. The spotlight is entirely in your head, not theirs, but that spotlight effect absolutely amplifies your social anxiety anyway. This total loss of control is deeply, deeply unsettling. The sociologist Irving Goffman described everyday life as a stage, a concept he called impression management. Think about it. You are always managing your identity, your posture, your expressions, exactly what you say in conversation. And because you carefully manage all of this, having a stranger or even a close friend capture one unready, frozen frame completely strips away your control. It feels like a massive invasion.
You define yourself by your values and your thoughts, not by one split-second frozen frame you weren't even ready for.
All right, let's look at section 4, conditioned emotional responses. Now, look, some of you just hate freezing your face for a screen. And hey, that's completely valid and requires zero psychological diagnosis. But for others, dodging the camera is an uncomfortable truth rooted in deep childhood memory. You've really got to ask yourself a tough question here. Are you truly just choosing privacy, or are you avoiding being seen altogether? A boundary and a wall look exactly the same from the outside, but one protects you while the other traps you. You have to figure out if you're actually hiding behind a wall built from a painful moment in your past.
For a lot of us, this goes way back. Step 1. Maybe when you were really young, a classmate or a relative took a photo and made an unwanted, throwaway comment about how you looked. Step 2. Your brain didn't think it was funny at all, so it filed that exact moment under being seen is dangerous. Step 3. A totally new, permanent rule gets written right into your nervous system. That rule is simple. Cameras equal judgment. Psychologists call this a conditioned emotional response.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. Decades later, your body still remembers that danger. Every single time a camera points your way, that old file opens right back up. You are not actually reacting to the photo anymore. You are reacting to the memory. Your visceral urge to hide isn't about the current camera at all, but an unhealed memory opening back up. You've been diligently following a rule your nervous system wrote years ago without ever being asked if you still agree with it today.
And finally, section 5, photos for your future self. I actually want to share a quick personal story with you here. For years, I completely avoided cameras. I was the one who always volunteered to be holding the phone. But then, one day, I was looking through a box of old school photos, class trips, birthdays, just random afternoons. My 17-year-old friends were all in there, laughing, pulling goofy faces, completely not caring how they looked. But as I flipped through them, I realized something really heavy. I was nowhere, not in a single frame. I had lived those exact moments with them. I was there. But I left behind absolutely no proof that I existed in those memories.
So let's bring this whole shebang together. People might call you insecure or shy or even difficult when you constantly dodge photos. But now you understand what's actually happening under the hood? Your brain rejects unfamiliar flipped images. Camera lenses literally distort physical reality by up to 30%. The spotlight effect amplifies your social anxiety, making you think everyone is hyper-focusing on your flaws. And for many, past conditioning triggers a deeply protective fear. It's a really complex psychological mix. The biggest takeaway I want you to have from this explainer is this. That is not a character flaw. That is just a brain doing exactly what it learned to do. You don't owe anyone a smile on command, and you certainly don't owe anyone an explanation. Realizing this isn't just some vanity issue, but a real psychological process gives you the ultimate permission slip to step behind the lens without an ounce of guilt. But here's my challenge for you. The next time you're somewhere that really matters with people who matter, consider stepping into just one frame. Just one. Don't grab the phone to take the picture this time. Do it not for the social media likes, and honestly, not even for the people in the room with you. Do it for the future version of you, who will one day flip through those old photos and desperately want to remember that you were there on that day. If any of this explainer resonated with you today, I would genuinely love to hear your story. Was there a specific defining moment when you first realized you hated being in front of the lens? Think about it. Understanding our reactions is the absolute first step to mastering them. Thanks so much for diving into the fascinating psychology of the lens with me today.